Okay, good. So yes, we're going to talk about climate change. And the first question I have for you is, how would you explain climate change to someone who knew nothing about it? So imagine the situation where, aliens arrive on the planet and, they don't know anything about climate change. How would you explain it to them as simply as you can? What is climate change? Is anybody who wants to start with this?
Well, it's like what I read in the description under your video is that climate change, it is a significant change in the weather over time.
Yeah. And
I would say to these aliens that we have average temperature of our planet, which is optimal. And if if this climate changes significantly, it may affect our environment. For example, it may affect animals and oceans. And if it changes significantly, for example, if average temperature goes up, it means that some animals may extinct because they didn't receive enough time to get used to a new environment, to a new conditions.
Yeah.
And also, for example, like melting, it may also cause melting polar ice. So it will increase volume of the ocean, and it may cause flood in different parts of the world.
Okay, yeah. With the animals, Philip, we say they may become extinct.
They may
become extinct. But yeah, I think that's quite a good summary of what climate change is. As anything you want to add about, how you would explain it, or for example, how would you give reasons for it? So if they said, okay, that sounds terrible, so how did all of this happen? Angie, how would you explain that?
In my point of view, I think climate change is a long-term change in the weather, and it happens because the Earth's atmosphere gets covered with a blanket of carbon dioxide, which reduces the scope of the sunlight to reflect back. So it makes the weather hotter. And that's what we say global warming.
Global warming, yeah. No, it's funny that in Scotland we say global warming. What do you mean global warming? It's freezing here. It's still freezing here. But I think it's about the change, because global warming, obviously the temperatures are rising, but it's also, I think, about extremes in weather, isn't it? And not just about it getting warmer, because we don't really see that here. Lena, did you want to say something?
Yes, I would like to say that some scientists, they try to change this climate change because it sounds more physical, and they suggest to say climate disaster.
Okay.
Because they want to make people be more
they need to be more afraid of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Because change
something that was happening, but this seems that human beings are make this change be more severe.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's true, actually, because climate change could be a good thing, but climate disaster definitely isn't a good thing. So that's quite an interesting way of looking at it, I guess, as well. But yeah, I guess people is really the key thing here, that we cause that as well. Tussi, you're very quiet. Let's get you talking. So how do you feel about climate change?
About climate change, for my opinion, it's based on a 4 seasons.
It's based on
like some 4 seasons: summer, winter, the falls, like that.
What do you mean about that?
Because when the season was changed, the climate also changed, right? If we are in summer, so climate change, like a hot weather, like that. When we are in winter time, the climate change, like
okay, so connected to the seasons. Yeah, I think obviously you have natural climate change, which has its own limits, but then you have what we're experiencing now, I think, in terms of unnatural climate change and extremes of weather and extreme changes. Lena, of course, is an expert in this. So, you know, she can give us all of the information we need about this.
I have a master in environmental education, but of course it's many years ago. So maybe I know the words. I am more familiar when I read articles, but from the other side, because I work as a teacher of economics, I don't follow all the, you know, everything which is new. I don't read everything.
Okay.
So I am not, what we say, up to date.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm not an expert.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't want to put too much pressure on you there. Just Josefa, how are you? Thank you for joining us again. Josefa, what do you think about climate change? How do you feel about it? I mean, a lot of people think it's a big problem, it's a disaster. Do you feel like that?
Yes. When I came to the UK, when I stay here in Scotland, I feel bad because I was live on in Angola. There is 45, 35 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, the festival when I stay here is at 10 degrees one day. Another day 3, I feel very, very bad. Disaster for myself, but not for count.
So obviously that's about the climate difference in different countries,
different
but
climate,
thinking about like global warming and, you know, the environmental disaster of these things. For Philip, what about you? What do you think about climate change? Do you feel like this is something that we need to finally take some action about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I live on this planet, and I hope that my kids will keep living here. And I feel personal responsibilities as I need to do something about that. And
okay, so let's talk about these personal responsibilities then. What do you do to try to limit the impact or the effects of climate change personally?
Well, are you asking me, right?
Yeah.
Well, my contribution is rather small. Well, I stopped using plastic bags, and instead I started using rucksack. If I go to shopping or something like that, so I don't use plastic bags. I just stopped doing this, and yeah.
I think maybe the government is going to ban plastic bags at some point. There was, I'm sure I read something about that. You know, obviously now we are charged.
European Union will stop everything plastic which is for one use.
Okay,
using,
we call it single-use plastic. Yeah.
Yes,
single-use plastic.
Because using plastic for many times, this is good. This is not good. This is fine.
It's better, yeah.
It's better.
But of course, we are not in the European Union, so you know that doesn't make any much of a difference to us. What about somebody else, Angie? What do you do to help with climate change?
First, I think climate change is a controversial subject, and it needs to be addressed to tackle this problem head on. And I think overconsumption triggers a throwaway society, and now we live in a consumerist world, and people just buy things and then they left it as a waste. So we waste our natural resources. So I'm trying to just buy what I really need. I'm not pushed by the fashion industry.
Yeah. Okay, so that's definitely good. Yeah.
Another thing that I think I do, and I think lots of people do, is saving energy at home. So just switching off lights when we don't use it. So consuming less electricity, I think, contributes to tackle this problem.
Yeah, exactly. And putting on heating as well. You know, people feel cold and they want to put on heating, but you can actually just put on a sweater and, you know, it has the same thing. Josefa, did you want to say something?
Yes. As myself, every day I try to education my kids, because we need to start at home and outside the home.
Yeah.
all the people sometimes use too much electricity at home. They use too much gas. That's needed. Sometimes we don't need the user, but the people user is bad for the climate. And for example, at home, I have in my building, my neighbor, they use all day the meter to the meter at home all day on. Yeah. Why they use a one if you don't need to use every day, all day the meter on? Yeah, but it's bad talk for
a lot of people. Yes, still just get used to that, and that's what they do.
Yeah, they still.
What do you think about meat consumption? Because obviously we're talking about energy consumption, and meat consumption is something related to this as well. Lena?
I want to add, I agree with all of you. I also try to do things like this in my life. I agree with Josepha, yes, that we should educate younger generations, and that's why I try to make a lot of projects at my school, because I am teaching at high school. And for example, in Greece, we don't have the mentality of second hand.
Okay.
Not at all in general. We don't have shops, and I try to do like exchange bazaars at my school, because at the beginning 3 years ago, the students, they afraid to change clothes. They thought that this will they will have disease after this, which is not true. And we have to change their minds by speech of we ask doctors to come and explain that when you wash the clothes, nothing can happen to you. So I try also to make some things that not only listen the students, but be part of them, of their life. And what I do is that I try to walk more than before. And for example, sometimes I don't prefer to go at a bigger supermarket, but also by near my house, which is smaller, and this is also good for the economy, that someone has a mini market. And also I don't have to take my car, which is sometimes, if we calculate, it is a lot of things. If every week I go by car at the supermarket, it sounds small, but if you do it for a year, it's something big. And of course, as they say, because I also read recently Bill Gates' book about the climate disaster. He said that the best we can do is to eat less meat, and this is something that I try to make it in my life, because before I couldn't realize the problem in warming the animals they do, and we have to, in order to give meat at all people they want right now, every year we have to raise more and more cows and everything. Sorry for my English, I don't express.
No, it's perfect. But no, you
understand.
But you're completely right, because with factory farming and the agricultural industry, they produce so many greenhouse gases, which obviously contributes to global warming and things like that. So
which is very, very high in causes. I think it's the third. And also it seems quite innocent to have a burger, but in fact it's not.
Well, what do you think about that, Angie? Would you No, do you try to limit the amount of meat you eat, or?
Yes, actually, I tried it not just because of the environment, but because it is healthier to reduce the amount of meat. Yes, I read that it is important to reduce the amount of meat that we eat to reduce the demand of livestock.
Yeah.
So it would contribute to environmental issues. So yes, I'm trying to do that. And I also read about local shopping. It is better to do a shopping in local shops because it reduces the transportation to other places or longer destinations. So it can reduce the carbon footprint and
exactly.
in turn reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And these all things are good things. I'm trying to do this actually.
It's something, you know, that a lot of people try, but a lot of people are quite against the idea of giving up or reducing meat, especially men. Philip, I'm looking at you because you're the only other man here. No, you know, the idea of you have to eat meat to be big and strong and healthy, and it's a manly thing to eat meat. What do you think about that, Philip?
Well, yes, but I also agree with the idea that that we need to reduce amount of meat that we consume, because I think that in our society we just eat a lot, and a lot of people suffer from overweight. So I don't think if we cut down meat a little bit, it will cause some kind of health issues.
Yeah.
So
and it's going to be good for the environment as well.
Yeah.
When we were, Angie was talking about the idea, you know, the carbon footprint idea. Do you know what that is, carbon footprint? What kind of things contribute to your carbon footprint?
So gases, different gases?
Yeah, it's basically your consumption of things, you know, like how much you travel by plane, your meat consumption, and all of the things that you do personally which produce greenhouse gases and which, you know, contribute to, or which use energy as well, I guess, and which contribute to this effect of global warming and climate change as well. So, you know, this is quite a, I guess it's a relatively new thing, but it's something that people talk about in terms of, you know, an individual's carbon footprint and what you can do to reduce that, like, you know, not taking your car, or, you know, traveling less by plane and eating less meat, and all of these things reduce the, you know, if you think about a footprint, it's like, you know, if you stood on a beach and you've left the print of your foot. So it's like what you left behind, the impact of you. But we also use it actually for organizations and for countries as well, the impact that you have on these things. Now, obviously, there are different, you know, there's quite a lot of scientific research and scientific writing on these things as well. And in fact, you know, we all know Greta Thunberg, of course. She says, you know, listen to the science. Do you always believe what the scientists say about global warming and climate change and all of these things? Or do you think sometimes the science can be wrong? Silence.
I believe.
You believe in the scientists, yeah? Okay, that's good. And
I believe because we contribute. When I say we, I say all the people. No, we contribute every day to destruction the climate, because
climate.
Yeah, many people. I don't care about that. Use everything bad. The people no respect. When you put, for example, in my job, we have men sign and say, "Don't do this, don't take this." I show my colleagues user when say no. When you say no, say it's yours. It's the boss, not yours. You know, boss. I say, okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, the other side of the scientific thing is about what politicians say, because obviously they have a big role to play in this. So what do you think governments and politicians should be doing just now to help the situation? Angie, yeah.
First, I believe in what the scientists say. I don't go with the skeptics who don't believe in the climate change, because if you look around you, you will find that the global warming that we're experiencing is destroying our lives, nature, and the world around us. And in terms of politicians, I think it is an important issue in every politician's agenda to-do list. So it is very important for politicians to address this problem. And I think the things that they can do is to enact policies to prevent things like deforestation. I think it has great impact on the climate change. So I think yes, they can encourage people to do or to change their lifestyle maybe a little bit in order to save our planet.
Yeah, and so, some people think that obviously politicians are acting now and there are international agreements and things like that, but some people think that they are too slow and not enough action is being taken as well. I mean, do you think that politicians and governments should now, see this as a disaster and see it as one of their main priorities? Tussi, what do you think about that?
Yeah, my opinion is scientists are always correct, but the problem is the point is never reach like every people the impact of global warming because of politicians. Now they are trying to do the electric transport, but that project doesn't reach properly to people.
What do you mean it doesn't reach?
They are acting like they're going to do the electric transport, so they'll stop like petrol, diesel cars and transport like that. But my opinion, then they never do any step for this.
Okay, so they should. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. So, for example, if they want to encourage people to use electric cars, then they need to make it easy for people to use electric cars. Yeah, but actually it's not that easy to have an electric car just now because it's much more expensive, and there are not so many places to charge it and things like that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, countries differ as well, so and sometimes it depends who is running the country at that time, how seriously they take. I mean, look at America when we had Trump. Obviously, he wasn't bothered about the environment. He was just interested in the economy. So, but obviously that's changing now as well. Lena, sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, I would like to add for the previous question that, of course, the politicians, it's not easy for them to take decision against some companies.
Yeah.
For example, they can't say now all the cars must be electric, because that means that a lot of companies should close, many people will stay without job. So of course this is a problem that we should realize it for politicians. So for me, I am happy that of course they have realized the problem nowadays. And about the articles we read about scientists, I believe, and my hope is always scientists, like now with the pandemic, we were all waiting scientists to give us the solution as it happened. But of course, I know that when you do a research, it depends who is paying for the money, and always is not the whole truth, because this is very difficult to find the whole truth.
Yep.
So for me, it's like a small puzzle that I try to,
Yeah,
put
that
them
makes sense.
all together. But of course, I believe in this, because many people still they don't believe, and they say, no, this is natural, don't worry, it's just about money, all this.
Yeah.
So of course this is the other side.
The other side of it, exactly. Philip, you want to say something?
Yes, I also wanted to remind you about situation that happened, I think, a few years ago in France, when Emmanuel Macron increased tax on petrol, I think 10%. I'm not sure about that, but he increased tax on petrol, and basically what happens that a lot of taxi drivers, a lot of delivery drivers, they just became poorer on 10%, and it's also not good. And Emmanuel Macron motivated this his decision as to try to make our planet greener, cleaner. So it's really also difficult to make decision that all people gonna like. So.
Yeah, you can't please all of the people all of the time.
Yeah,
that's certainly true. So what about the future? I mean, do you think the future looks optimistic in terms of the environment, or how do you think it's going to go? Over the next few years, do you think we're going to make all of these changes that we have to make, electric cars and international agreements and things like that, Tussi?
I don't think so, because the major part in this problem, the major part, corporate companies, they never allowed to be good global, I think. I don't think so.
No, because there's too much money involved in it. Yeah. What about anybody else? Are you optimistic for the future?
Actually, I'm on the fence on this issue, because it is a global problem. So not just one country should get a step forward. I think all countries should gather together and find a solution. So, for example, in the UK, I think they started to take action. For example, when I started to look for a flat in the UK, I found that they encourage people to get like electrical ovens and electrical like hubs and things like that. So they encourage people to use clean type of fuel. So it was something good, but if you looked to other countries, you wouldn't find this thing. So yes, I mean, it is not a single action. I mean, all countries should gather together, and I'm not sure if they can do it together, because yeah, I don't know.
I think also there's a question about if we've gone too far already. The idea of a tipping point. When something can no longer be changed. That we've gone too far, because there was talk about the temperature increases if it's 2 degrees, or if it's 1.5 degrees. Before they were thinking 2 degrees was too much, and then we've gone too far. But now it's they're looking at 1.5 and things like that. So I think there's a question of that we just don't know really, all the impact that this is having just now. So I guess that's what makes it even more important to take action just now. Lena?
I am, of course, I am optimistic by my character, and I hope that new technologies we can find the solution, because since now they can't, to make our life not change, like nobody travels, nobody, not means that we have to go like 200 years before, staying inside our house with fire and everything. But we had this technology that we can stay with sustainable way, because we know the way we should act in Earth. But the problem is that with the way we live now, this is not possible. And now they try, because since now we can't take the energy from sun, because we can't keep it in order you know what I mean. We don't have the materials to keep and stay like we are now, that we have electricity all the time. So I think that maybe we have the solution by new technologies, that we can be sustainable, but also not lose the quality of life we live. So I hope.
Sorry, my dog is going crazy. Somebody came to the door. Yeah, I think that's a very good kind of summary of it. Dylan, stop it. That's a good summary of it. So yes, good. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to this conversation?
You know, I hope that, like Lina said, that science will invent something that will solve this problem, and also I hope that this technology will be accessible worldwide, and not only in Greta Thunberg country like Norway, where it's the richest country in the world, I think. Well, I hope that this technology also will be accessible somewhere in Africa, where people can have some kind of car, whereas they can go from point A to point B, travel. So that's my hope.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.